Our class is now started. Good morning, grade 9. What's going to happen this time is something that was bound to happen last week. It's just that last week's period was paired for the poetry reading activity that you did. However, I'm not sure if everybody was able to submit their video recordings. I downloaded files last weekend. There were a number of files that were downloaded. To those who submitted their outputs ahead of time, thank you so much. To those who there was also this problem. There were others who submitted their outputs through Edmodo. It's just that I was not able to open or even download the files. What I did was to ask for the copies again, and actually that will not mark any of these outputs late in submission. I'll base the time of submission on the first attempt to submit the output. It had something to do perhaps with, so many of the students told me of this. It's the internet connection that proved to be a problem while sending the files. There were also others who found that the file that they recorded, the video that they recorded, was too heavy to be simply sent online. And so it took longer than expected, or that the file wasn't completely sent. There was something wrong with the file. It required another attempt to submit it. Again, those outputs which were given in another chance for submission were not marked as late. And of course, I have to really consider it. But to those who really did their best to submit their outputs on time or even before the deadline, thank you so much. I really appreciated your effort there. I enjoyed listening to your way of reading the title of Do Not Go Gentle into That Good Night. I'm just not sure why others read the name of Dylan Thomas differently. I don't know why to some the name was read as Dylan Thomas. Because for the many years that I've heard the name, people have just pronounced it as Dylan. Probably there's a variation. I was surprised. I did not just expect that the name be pronounced as Dylan Thomas. However, I'd like to also remind you that the activity that you did last week is not going to be the last poetry reading activity that you'll do. I'd like to share that my choice of literature is on poetry, not much on prose. I appreciate prose, but I appreciate poetry more. So expect for more poems for you to read. If possible, memorize and recite. That's our goal. You memorize it and you recite it. But if the internet connection is still going to be a problem, then a poetry reading might just suffice. I don't know, maybe a video recording of you doing a recitation of a memorized poem can be arranged on some other time. But then again, that will not be the last poem that you'll find in this subject. In fact, our lesson next week, have you received Module 3? Module 3? Module 3 contains what selection? Vam, can you please read the title of the selection for Module 3?
A Psalm of Life by Henry Wadsworth
Longfellow. So you have
Persona
there,
and Touch.
another poem entitled A Psalm of Life. So this week will be spared for Module 2 because we were not able to have Module 2 last week. Next week, no new module in English 9 will be given as Module 3 is already with you. And the contents of Module 3 will be discussed next week. And again, there is a poem there entitled A Psalm of Life by Longfellow. Expect for what's to come by the time a poem is presented to you. So if I were you, you should probably try spending some time reading it. Yeah, you practice reading it at home, because one thing, before I proceed to the discussion today, I'd like to really pinpoint this particular habit of your class in doing poetry reading. Quite a number from you read it as though it's a plain set of texts of words. Poetry stands to be quite distinguishable from prose. How does that come to be? Poetry is open for emotions, facial projection. I'm not saying that you should exaggerate your expressions, but we are going to elaborate our expressions and the way we read these lines. An elaborated reading is different from an exaggerated reading. Exaggerated readings of poetry would mean that you are doing something beyond what's expected or what's needed. And that might present an overly dramatic manner of reading a poem. However, an elaborate reading is up to what's necessary. That's what the material requires, and that you're able to meet with the requirement of the selection. An elaborate reading is what we are hoping from you. I felt kind of sad. Uh, yeah, I felt kind of sad, honestly, when I heard people, when I saw the video and I heard students read it as, "Do not go gentle into that good night." And then that line of rage, rage, that's the word rage in itself evokes emotions. So I was hoping that something would also come out from the way it's being read. But then again, maybe because it's the year first, I'd like to give some considerations, but perhaps next time things will be different. Things will have to be different. There needs to be a change in how you are reading them. Plus, I'm not sure what really caused it, but perhaps it had nothing to do with being awkward in front of the camera. I'm just hoping that that choice or that style, which wasn't that good in reading the poem, was not influenced by the awkwardness that you felt while facing the camera. In the first place, no classmate of you or no classmate of yours is watching you at the time. Or that you are just alone at home or in your room. So there's no need to be awkward about it. Just again, give it your best, read it properly, be elaborate in the way you have read the selection. This now will more or less be the end of the initial tips for poetry reading. We proceed to lesson 2. Lesson 2 talks about a very famous selection that has already left its mark in world literature. Not just in Scandinavian literature, in Danish literature, but also, most importantly, in world literature. It's just quite unfortunate, though. I don't know if others would feel it to be unfortunate, that the author of this selection has come to be unknown. Such a popular work has come to be unknown in terms of its author. I'm talking of no less than, how do you read the title of the selection? I'd like to get the pronunciation from you. Al, can you please pronounce the title of that selection, Al?
Beowulf.
Again, please. Clearly, please.
Beowulf. Beowulf.
Okay. What about Trixley? Again, before we proceed, before we continue on this, can I request some of you to turn your cameras on? Again, it's so lonely to just find 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 faces. Yes, Trixley.
Beowulf.
Beowulf. Okay. What about Kathy?
Beowulf, sir.
Again, louder. Really, please.
Beowulf.
Okay. I mean, I can't also blame you if I'm not saying that your pronunciations are wrong, but actually there's a better way to pronounce it. The selection is supposed to be pronounced as Beowulf. If you notice, there's no L sound. It's Beowulf. We do not supposedly pronounce it as Beowulf. It's Beowulf. It's not also Beowulf. It's Beowulf. The L sound may be there, but it's not a strong or a dominant consonant sound. It's a very subtle L sound. So it's a Beowulf. It's Beowulf. What kind of to what literary genre does this selection belong? I'd like to ask Harvey. Harvey? What about Corinne? To what literary genre does the selection Beowulf belong? It's so sad.
Fiction.
Again?
Fiction.
It's fictional, correct. And then, where does it belong? Is it in prose or in poetry, Nathalia? Where are you? Nathalia? Jaya, what about Jaya?
Prose.
Is it on prose? Is it
Wait.
prosaic? I
Wait.
mean, look at its structure. Look at its structure.
Wait, sir. Poetry.
Correct. It is under the poet. It is under the how do you call that? The realm of poetry. In fact, this selection under poetry is considered an epic. What is an epic? Recall, what is an epic? I'd like to call Asia. Asia? What about, here you go, Asia. A narrative poem, correct. Let's start with that. I'd like that it was mentioned, that was the first thing that Jaya said. Asia said. Epics are narrative poems because they contain a story, they present a story that they're trying to narrate. There is a narration of a set of events, and these events constitute the plot. It's just that the structure is not in paragraph form, but in verses or in stanzas. That is why it's still under poetry. Let's look into the nature of the storyline. What kind of story do we expect to find in an epic, Ven?
It deals with war and adventure, sir.
You have war and adventures, correct? And if you have war and adventures, that means that you have characters in that particular selection. How do we describe these characters, Ken? What kind of characters do we expect to find in an epic?
Heroes.
Correct. So we have heroes or heroines embarking on an adventure or in participating in a war or in a battle, and that the story is presented just in the form of verses or in stanzas. Basically, epics are narrative poems that present the heroes and their heroic deeds. That's what epics are. In relation to this selection entitled Beowulf, we have here quite a few characters that are actually presenting to you what really an epic is. I mean, the flow of the plot really justifies the label attributed to this selection. This really counts as an epic. I'm not sure if you've seen the movie. Have you seen the movie Beowulf? What happened to you? I don't know. It's not really an old movie. I think the movie was released sometime in 2010, 2009, 2010. The movie is actually available. If you have the time, please find some moments to download it or watch it in your spare time. Wait. I thought everybody froze. So the movie talks about a monster. What is the name of this monster, Harl?
Grendel.
Grendel, correct. And then, Grendel is considered to be a plague, a monstrosity attacking a particular kingdom. It's that kingdom of, who is the ruler of that kingdom, Al?
King Hrothgar.
Hrothgar.
Hro-
It's just read as Hrothgar. Hrothgar. And Hrothgar is the ruler of what kingdom? I'd like to call a king. O king. Hrothgar is the king of what kingdom? See what I did there? King. Again, king. The question is, Hrothgar is the
Yes, sir.
king of what kingdom?
What, sir? What, sir?
What is the name of the kingdom that is ruled by King Hrothgar?
I don't know, sir.
It's in the copy, my God.
Yeah, I
The
cannot.
copy was with you for 2 weeks already, my. It's a short word. Kenneth actually asked me about this last. I think it was last week. Kenneth, no, sir, is this a typographical error? Versions of the cell, because what you have there is a translation. It is possible that other translations present variations in spelling. So do not be surprised if what you have there is spelled in 5 letters. The name of the kingdom is spelled in 5 letters, while some other variations would spell it with 6 letters. The pronunciation remains the same. What's the name of the kingdom, Harl? I gave the clue already. The kingdom's name is composed of 5 letters, if not 6. Chelsea is raising her hand. Go. Chelsea?
Herod.
Correct. So we have the kingdom of Herod. So let's try to recall these key ideas. You have Herod, the kingdom of Hrothgar, and that kingdom has been plagued by Grendel, the monster, a monster considered to be a plague, a pestilence, as that monster for several nights would come to feast on the people living. The people of Hrothgar are the people of the kingdom of Hrothgar are referred to as Danes. They're considered as Danes. These are people of a Danish origin, whereas our hero is actually one of the Geats. I think the word is also in the copy. It's spelled Geats. Our hero named Beowulf is one of the Geats. The Geats are inhabitants of a particular region, of a particular Scandinavian region. So the story proceeds with Beowulf knowing of this plague harming the kingdom of Hrothgar. His uncle named Higlac, the name is also there in the copy, Higlac. Beowulf is actually labeled as Higlac's follower because Higlac, aside from being the uncle of Beowulf, is also the kingdom where Beowulf lives. So more or less, the ruler of the kingdom where Beowulf lives is Higlac. So Beowulf embarked on that journey to Herod upon knowing of this plague. He wanted to see if Beowulf's strength would be great Herod or the kingdom of Hrothgar. So he came. Upon arrival, I think this is not in the selection that you have received. Upon arrival, Hrothgar actually received Beowulf with so much welcome that he even decided to throw in a feast for Beowulf. There was a feast that they celebrated. On that same feast, Beowulf declared that he should be able to kill Grendel. If not, he be the one who's going to be killed. So that's more or less the gamble that Beowulf presented. That if he could not if he could not kill Grendel, it should be him that's going to be killed. So the feast went on, the celebration went on. This is even found in the movie. They had drinks, they had wine, they had women, they enjoyed the night. On that same night, while the feast was going on, Grendel was irked by the sound created by the feast. One thing that irks, or one thing that Grendel doesn't like, was noise. He really doesn't like it when there's just so much noise. And since there was a feast in Hrothgar's kingdom, in Herod, to celebrate the arrival and Beowulf's declaration of defeating Grendel, the sound coming from the feast irked Grendel. He saw from afar that Hrothgar was in jubilation, was really happy. He waited for the moment for the music to die down, for the celebration to die down. Why? If he went to Hrothgar's kingdom while there was a celebration, for sure he'll just get distracted and irked again, be so uneasy by the noise that he kept on hearing. So he swore to himself, I'll have my vengeance on these people for being so noisy later on. So late in the evening came, the music has died down, the celebration has died down. So many of the soldiers were drunk. Even Beowulf himself was drunk. Hrothgar was drunk as well, because they again just had a celebration. So what Grendel did was to attack the hall of the Danes. That's the hall where they celebrated. But of course, he did not attack so violently. He did not attack as though he destroyed the doors. No. He went in carefully and sneakingly. And the first thing that he found was one of the soldiers lying near a banquet table. One of the Danes soldiers was found was seen by him lying asleep near a banquet table. So what did he do? What did Grendel do? As expected from a monster, he grabbed that soldier and devoured it. He ate it. I mean, that's more or less expected from a monster. The next thing that he saw after eating that soldier, so he's now having his feast. He's now taking his share of the feast. After devouring that single soldier, he found another body lying motionless, as that body was drunk. Guess whose body it was? It was the body of Beowulf. Among all, it was the body of Beowulf that he tried to grab. But what surprised him? Go. I'll throw in this question now because the rest of the plot is found in the selection that I gave you. What surprised Beowulf upon grabbing the supposed motionless body of Beowulf? What surprised him there, Ken?
What surprised him there was when he tried to, what do you call this? I think it was a bite the arm.
Yeah.
And as soon as he did, he suddenly filled with fear because of how hard his hands were.
Correct. That caught him so surprised. That gave him the idea that he is facing with someone with no ordinary Danish warrior soldier. He was not expecting that. From the eyes of Grendel, he just thought that the feast that the Danes celebrated was just among them. He did not expect any foreigner, much so someone whose arms were so hard that it felt so difficult for him to grab or even to bite on. And what happened next, Kim?
Ano sir, Beowulf gripped tightly the hands of Grendel as hard as he could until the fingers were Ano sir, like crush, I think. Yeah.
And let's focus on this part. There
Mm.
was now more or less a battle scene. Grendel's arms were grabbed by Beowulf. It seemed as though his arm, or if not his hands, were being crushed. But surprisingly, the monster found it so difficult to escape from the grasp of Beowulf. That's something that Grendel did not also expect from a human being, from a mere mortal. The word mortal has appeared in so many of the translations. That's an emphasis that the mortal in the name of Beowulf was no ordinary mortal. Just imagine that soldier. The first soldier that was eaten was a mortal. So defenseless, killed right away. But we have here another mortal who had inhuman strength, supernatural strength, that his grip was not something that Grendel was able to easily escape from. But was Grendel able to leave the Hall of the Danes? Harl. Was Grendel able to leave the Hall of the Danes?
No.
Are you
I
sure?
yes.
Isn't lang what is that? Al. Again, I want to call the others, but because their cameras are turned on and because of what happened earlier, I feel like if I call them, it just might take so much lag time. So I'll just call in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 faces that I'm seeing right now. There are just 8 faces here. It's so sad. Al. Question,
Barely,
Al.
sir.
Was he able to leave the Hall of the Danes?
Barely.
Barely. But what that the word barely there still means that he was able
Able
to
to
leave.
escape.
He was able to escape. However, I'd like to also use your word barely, Al. The word barely there also denotes that he was more or less in the brink of death by the time he managed to leave the Hall of the Danes. The soldiers of Hrothgar, did they try to attack Grendel? While this, while the scene between Beowulf and Grendel was going on, did the soldiers of Hrothgar try to attack Grendel? Kathy,
Yes, sir.
did they succeed?
No, sir.
They did not. Why? What's the reason behind there, Kathy?
Their weapons were not strong enough. Was able to like avoid or catch them.
So that's one clear. That's one thing as well. That's one big irony there. You have there a mortal with a very tight grip on Grendel, with bare hands, people bare hands. But then there were soldiers who used weapons with sharp blades, spears, blades, arrows, mostly blades and swords. But these weapons were not able to hurt or pierce the skin, just even piercing the skin of the monster Grendel. It was as if Grendel has placed some form of enchantment or spell on these weapons of Hrothgar that they will not work at him for whatever the soldiers are going to use. However, again, let's try to bring it back to how powerful Beowulf is. With mere brute force, he was able to conquer the monster. So going to the answer of Al earlier, to more or less cut the story short, the battle happened and the arm of Grendel was detached from his body. But that arm was not the only thing that inflicted him so much pain. The rest of his body experienced the pain as hurt or inflicted by Beowulf. And yes, he was able to barely leave the halls of the Danes. But eventually, he met his death. Eventually, Grendel died. Beowulf exclaimed for his success. He has succeeded in his goal and he was able to prove, take note, Beowulf went to Herod because he wanted to see whether his strength or whether he has enough strength to defeat such a monster considered to be a plague to a big kingdom. So he was able to keep himself true to his words. He was able to really justify and concretize the strength that he possesses. The celebration went on. In fact, his victory reached the ears of the other kingdoms, and that also, the defeat of Grendel, just the idea of having that monster be defeated, reached the ears of the kingdom, of several kingdoms. In several translations, in several versions, there was this attempt of making or requesting Beowulf stay in the kingdom of Hrothgar, giving him. There were several translations or versions of this, giving him a position, if not the role of being a ruler or a ruler of the kingdom. However, there were accounts where Beowulf did not accept this. Beowulf did not try considering it because he found his purpose to be able to show his strength. That he is a warrior who is bound to simply show that he is strong and that he has the strength to defeat monsters. There were also other versions of the translation where Hygelac called forth Beowulf, meaning Hygelac, the uncle, the feudal lord of that Scandinavian region, requested that Beowulf return to his homeland, as his mission, as his task has already been done or accomplished. So that's the story of Beowulf. Attached to this selection in literature, we have another lesson we have a literature lesson. We have direct and indirect characterization. What do we do when we characterize a person, a particular character? What is the idea behind characterizing a character? Vem.
Describing the characters here.
Correct. Characterization involves providing descriptions to a character or to a set of characters. This brings us back to the many ways by which characterization can be done. You can do it by that many, not so many though, sorry. By the two ways that characterization can be done. You can have direct characterization or indirect characterization. Let me start with direct characterization. Direct characterization simply requires the words, text, thoughts, or actions shown or exhibited by the character as indicated in the selection. More or less, this would require from you, readers, or in your case, students, to memorize the entire selection. That's the demand of direct characterization. For instance, you have a character, you have character A, assuming that the selection is, character A said, I am a happy person. Then character A died. Character A is character A said, I am a happy person. What did we do there? We directly quoted the words of character A. Again, that's the demand of direct characterization. We settle with what's found in the text and we use it to describe a character. What do we use? The lines of the character, the description provided by the text of that character. If the says that, for instance, the selection is stated as, once upon a time, a beautiful princess lived in the forest. So that's the line. And then the task is directly characterize the princess in the story. And then you'll say the princess is beautiful. The word beautiful there is found in the text. That's how the text described the character. And what you're doing is a direct characterization. You took a word, a verbatim expression from the text to describe the character. Then again, that's more or less requiring you that more or less requires from you to memorize the text, because you should know the exact words from the text. Because of this, here comes another way of doing characterization, and that's the indirect manner. An indirect manner of characterizing personas in a selection would mean that you should interpret and understand the character's purpose, a development, if not progression in the selection. Meaning, you should know the text, you should read the text completely, and from there, you should decipher by yourself how that character actually has portrayed his or her role, or what you could describe, what you could think of. You, take note, what you could think as a description to that character. Let's have, for instance, these characters. Let's try to indirectly characterize Cinderella. So when we indirectly characterize Cinderella, you don't have to look for the exact words used by the selection. Don't do that. Look into what you've known of the story behind Cinderella's name. And from there, indirectly describe Cinderella. Let me start. I'll try to start, and then I'll give you another character later on. Cinderella is so... in the vernacular term, I know this is recorded. Let me just use the term. Cinderella is so igat. Why? Why? I think that description fits her because she probably intentionally left her glass shoe so that she could meet with the prince again. If that glass shoe was a perfect fit for her, why would she accidentally drop it or remove it from her foot as she was making her way back to her carriage because of the 12 midnight curfew? Unless, of course, she had it planned all along. Ma'am LB and Ma'am Cathy reacted. Diba? I mean, think about it. Think about it. If the glass shoe perfectly fit her foot, then why would that be left while she was running? And why would she just leave one shoe? If the issue is the fitting of the glass, if the issue is with the fitting of the glass shoe in her feet or foot, then both glass slippers or glass shoes should have been removed, diba? But why was it the only one? Unless she had it planned all along that she wanted to meet with Prince Charming. Diba? Another character, let me share this to you. Another character. You have Ariel of the Little Mermaid. Little kids might just indirectly characterize Ariel as I can't think of a good I can't think of a good thing. Let me try to say that Ariel is such a rebellious girl. She's rebellious to the point that she's willing to make a bargain with a villain, Ursula, just so she could be with a man she fell in love with. Diba? She's willing to rebel from her father's words. She left the sea just so she could have her legs. Why did she want those legs? Because she wanted to be with that man she fell in love with. And because of that, so many girls today... No, I got carried away. I just got carried away, sorry. Sleeping Beauty. Don't get me started with Sleeping Beauty, people. How old was she when she got pricked by that spinning thing by that needle? 16? Was she 16? Clear instructions. 16-year-old. Why would you even? How stupid can you get for your finger to be pricked by that needle, be? You are not a 2-year-old. Unless of course, she got that idea that if I fall asleep, a true love's kiss will. It's the story, the storybook. O, ba? Don't also get me started with Snow White. Don't get me started with Snow White, people. You also have you have a murderous story as well. Hansel and Gretel. There's so much evil behind the story of Hansel and Gretel. Let's start with the father leaving the children in the middle of the forest. That gives you and you also have of course in attempts to wait, that's also one thing. Maybe because they're kids, that when they saw a house made of candy, they tried. But shouldn't you rather leave these places? I mean, they're too good to be true. That's true, Kev. Your childhood is such a lie. Let's go to people whom we, probably characters whom we are quite acquainted with. Like for instance, let's indirectly, we'll not go with direct characterizations. Let us indirectly characterize Belle of Beauty and the Beast. It's not that I have issues with stories, childhood stories. I don't have issues with them. I really don't. This just came out. How would you indirectly characterize Belle, Shalaila?
I don't have any idea. So.
Like, think of a word or a phrase. By the way, characterizations are not limited to just a word, to just one adjective. You can provide a phrase or if not a sentence to indirectly characterize someone. But by the way, it's not enough to say Cinderella is igat. No. Ariel is rebellious. No. That's not enough. What completes the process of characterization, especially indirect characterization, is when you are able to provide an explanation to support that description you have provided to a character. It's unfair for you to say that this character is so carefree. And then when someone asks why, then you'll just say, just because. You should provide a good reason to explain the descriptions that you have provided. For instance, if you say, Belle has compassion. O, di ba? Belle is a compassionate woman. Char. Or that Belle has so much... I was about to use the word. Never mind. Yeah, like Belle is compassionate. Then you should provide an explanation for that. Why would you say that Belle is compassionate? Or Belle has compassion for anybody, for everybody, except for Gaston. I mean, who would be compassionate for Gaston? Or like that. Or how would you indirectly characterize... you had mythology last year in your social studies. I think you were able to have a touch of Greek mythology. How would you indirectly characterize Zeus, the chief gods of the Olympians? Zeus. How would you indirectly characterize him, Kathy?
A lot of girls.
Again?
A lot of girls.
Go, prove that, support it. So see, look at the process now. I asked Kathy to describe Zeus. She gave me a phrase, and that's fine. What completes this process is when Kathy is able to explain the description she provided. Yes, Kath, go.
Um, he,
My God, I would not want to read the words that you've placed in the chat box.
he, from what I've read, sir, like Zeus has a lot of children. I'm guessing that he has a lot of girls.
That's true. That's true, Kath. Zeus has a lot of children, and these children came from different women. And these women came to be the subject of Hera's anger or rage or wrath. As Hera stood to be the wife of Zeus in Olympus, any mortal that Zeus decided to be related with, and you know what I mean by the word related, came to be a subject of Hera's wrath. You should know the name of Hercules. Hercules is the son of Zeus and Alcmene, and Hercules was punished by Hera by giving him the labors, 12 labors. See, look at what if it's not the mother that's punished, it's the son that carries on the burden of being punished. Let's try to look for popular characters. How would you indirectly characterize Hermione Granger? Trixley, do you know Hermione Granger?
I have no idea, sir.
You do not know Hermione Granger. Have you been living under a rock, Trixley? Trixley, how can you not know her? Emma Watson, you should know Emma Watson, Trixley.
No pod, sir.
Trixley, now that you have a new laptop, please find the time to search for the names of Emma Watson, Hermione Granger, Harry Potter. What about that name, Trixley? That name should ring a bell. Harry Potter. Trixley.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's start from there. Harry Potter, how would you indirectly describe him?
Answer. Harry Potter is...
By the way, if one of you would say, Harry Potter, sir, is a wizard, that's not an indirect characterization. That is a direct characterization. Because that word has been used several times in the book containing the story about Harry Potter. Let's go with its character. Harry Potter, how would you indirectly characterize him? Tricks.
Chick boy, sir.
Okay. I did not expect that. The good thing with indirect characterization is Asia really gave a big no. It's also like this. One thing that people enjoy from indirect characterization is their descriptions are entitled to their opinions for as long, what's the condition again? For as long as you have a good deal of explanations. Be ready to explain and justify that description that you have provided. Go. Trixley. What made you decide to give that description, Trixley? Hey, Trixley.
No, sir.
So why did you call him that way? Aisha, I'll call Aisha. Aisha?
Yes, sir.
You gave a big no to the description given by Trixley. Can you please justify this?
I think Harry is a brave and loyal Like friend, he will do anything for his friend. He
Oh,
will
see,
also
look,
risk his own life.
see, these are the descriptions and explanations provided by. We really have. I think we have someone here who's a fan of Harry. There's one character that I'd like us to. I think this character is the last that will indirectly characterize. No less than the famous Dora. Anybody who would like to indirectly characterize Dora? Who doesn't know her? Well, if you don't know her, there's nothing to lose. You have nothing to basically lose if you don't know her. Like you could continue living a good life if you do not know her. So I'd like to call who are the Doranians here? There's no Doranian. I'll call Al. How would you indirectly characterize Dora?
Blind, sir.
I get what you're saying though. Please explain. Wait, Kent Barcinilia agrees with you. He also wrote the word blind. What made you say that, Al?
Can't
Wait,
see
I
the
think
face.
I can give you the scene. I can give you the scene. Dora, bridge. Then Dora would look at the screen like this. How will we cross the river? And then she'll do that. Where is the bridge? If only you can slap her face and you turn your head. Look at what's behind you. The bridge is there. That's what I appreciate from Blue's Clues. You should know Blue's Clues. We gotta find another paw print. That's our second clue. We put it in our notebook because the Blue's Clues. With Steve, you have Blue and the other dog named Magenta. Mr. Salt and Mrs. Pepper. My God, people, what has happened to your childhood? Blue's Clues is different from Dora the Explorer because Blue's Clues tends to be interactive as there are kids who really speak. Like when Steve looks at the camera and would ask, do you know where Blue is? Or where is Blue right now? And then the kids on the television set or as programmed would say, on the table. Where is the clue? Where's the clue? On the chair. So there is quite a live interaction. Let's not get started with Barney, people. My God. Barney perhaps was the cause of the extinction of the dinosaurs. When the dinosaurs heard of the existence of Barney, they felt like we might as well be dead. If this is how we are projected in the present time, we might as well not anymore be here. What's the use? We have teeth, ferocious teeth. But look at what Barney did. Barney looks like he's having some postizo. All that you could see from him would be the gums. So that's direct and indirect characterization. So for Thursday, the FTs will be checked. And then hopefully after checking the FTs, we can proceed with another set of debate rounds. Al and Shalayla this afternoon, don't forget. See you this afternoon, Shalayla. Goodbye and thank you, grade 9.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, and
Goodbye,
thank
and
you.
Goodbye
Happy
and
birthday, Al.
goodbye and
Happy
thank you,
birthday, Al.
sir.
Happy
Happy
birthday.
birthday to you. Happy birthday.